They've been amazing for us. They're keeping the world ticking as we're all stuck at home right now in this mess that we're in. So I'm going to get right to it today with our guest, Frances. I'm going to bring her in to say hi to everybody. How are you doing, Frances?
Hello, I'm doing great, actually.
That's good to hear. How are you handling this mess that we're in, and how has it changed the business that you're running?
So I'm going to be one of those odd people that's going to tell you that it's had very little impact on my life. Uh,
Wow.
so I'm an introvert. So and my whole business model is a home office. I don't typically go out a ton. So my extrovert friends are struggling, right? They're going, this is kind of hard. And I'm thinking my life has not changed that much.
You know
Uh,
what? That's amazing to hear because it didn't bother me to not be able to go out until they said I couldn't.
well, there is the choice thing, but I find the other thing that's really interesting, and this just speaks a bit to my past. So for most of my life, except for the last 4 or 5 years, I've lived outside of a city. And so I only did grocery shops, I did once a week. So I know that a lot of people now are finding that really weird because they're used to going every day or a couple times a day. And that's never how I've done my shopping. So this is, again, other than having to stand in a line to get into the store and that stuff, it honestly has not been a huge impact for me.
So with that being said, Frances, so your business hasn't changed much. Is that because you do a lot of your business from home? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, 100%. I'm an author. Well, you write at home at your desk, or I mean, you might lots of people go to Starbucks or whatever, but I'm not that person. I find it too distracting. And I'm a speaker. Well, like 90% of that is again at home. Like very little of your time is actually on stage. And I'm a mentor coach, and again, because I have a home-based business, I either meet, well, like you work all over the world, right? So a lot
That's
of it's
it.
actually this.
So have you had events canceled then because of the COVID? Like, were you booked to be on stages and that's been canceled, or that wasn't affected for you yet?
Well, interestingly, I back in January, when ordinarily, and even before that, when you would be reaching out and booking those events, I decided to do something quite different, and I've poured all my energy into an online summit. And so, planning any kind of doing any of the marketing for speaking wasn't really on my view. And then, obviously, as things unrolled with COVID-19, like nobody's doing stage stuff.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Now, with that being said as well, Frances, so you're saying you're doing this online summit. That's what we're here to talk about today. Why
Mhm.
don't you explain to people what the online summit's all about and what it's going to cover and how it's going to help people? It's been a pretty big project of yours for the last little while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's we were kind of laughing about technology before we got rolling here because there always seems to be some kind of a hiccup. So it's a global online summit. It's a global self-leadership summit. So self-leadership is what I talk about and what I write about it. And I recognize that it's a subset of leadership, but it's well known but rarely talked about, is you can't really lead others until you lead yourself. And so when I thought about how I could best bring that subject to the world, how I could best really serve other people, I thought that if I brought in other experts from around the world who this is their area of expertise, that we could really create something special. So that's exactly what I did. I went online, I researched, used Google, used LinkedIn, all those things, and reached out to well, it's like anything, right? You cast the net and you cast it broad, and you see who will come along for the ride with you. And
That's
so
amazing.
that's what I did. And so it's been, the interviews are the fun part.
Yeah.
Right? You might know that. This is the best part of it all.
Yeah.
The
No, it truly
technology.
is. It's fun. I've learned it's a new skill, though. I don't think people understand. It's not easy to do.
No,
When you're interviewing people, when you've never done it before. I mean, I know some guys with radio backgrounds and stuff, they've been doing it all their lives, and you watch them do it and they make it look so easy. And then when you jump into something like this, it's not easy to do. So how have you handled that? And how did you reach out to these people across the world, and what kind of people are they?
so in terms of reaching out, I really, before I did that, I created an avatar like we often do in business, like who are we serving? What are they about? What, what is it that we're offering? What's the problem we're solving? That sort of thing. And then I looked at, I included that in my messaging to the people I was reaching out to. So, like, literally, I went on LinkedIn, I looked at who was doing what. I found their contact information. I'd look at their websites to see who they were, what they were about, what they offered. And then I literally sent a cold email explaining who I was and what I was doing. And, initially it's like anything, right? Like, well, some people didn't respond at all. Some people were like, they were already super busy, although I'm sure that changed for them. Like there were people that were getting ready to go out and do book tours, or had a full speaking agenda. And I'm reasonably certain that most of those like tanked afterwards. But yeah, I just introduced myself and who I was and what I was trying to do. And one of the really exciting things was when you got people that said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're diving into this topic. It's not talked about enough." And so one of those people, and her name might not be a household name, but her name is Susan Fowler, and she actually works under the Ken Blanchard organization, the 1 Minute Manager, if you're familiar with that line of books.
Yeah.
And she co-authored a book with him on self-leadership. And so when I read that book, it was like, wow, this is an awesome book, and I'd love to talk to her. But I mean, I am not Susan Fowler, and I'm not, a worldwide name. And so nothing ventured, nothing gained,
You
right?
just got to dive into it.
You just dive
Like
in.
that's exactly how I started Awesomepreneurs. I had no idea what it was going to be or what it was going to turn into. All I had to do was take the first step to dive into it. And it sounds like you've done exactly that with this online summit. So
Yeah.
what subject is it? All about self-leadership, and you've got different leaders from around the world that are going to be speaking towards that?
Yeah, so self-leadership is kind of an umbrella term, right? So it involves things like um, your belief system, your mindset system. Um, so I have speakers so just to touch on that, so I have speakers from Canada, from across the United States, from the UK, from Italy, France, Greece, the Netherlands, and Australia.
Wow. So
Yeah, it's
you've
really
covered the
cool.
world.
As much as I could, as much as I could. And so they're all kind of attacking different things in terms of, um, and they, sorry, that's not very coherent, is it? So you've got entrepreneurs, you've got people that come from nonprofits as well. I wanted to include them in this. So executive directors, trainers, coaches, entrepreneurs, because we're all essentially leading groups of people. We're just doing it, coming at it in different ways. So they're talking about self-awareness and emotional intelligence. They're talking about imposter syndrome, or like for sure mindset, and yeah, they're all coming at it in different ways, because we've all, it's part professional experience, but it's also personal, right? Like what they've learned about themselves and the journey that they've been on, which I think is what resonates for most of us, right? It's not about someone being on like a platform up here and like, oh, it's like they're real people and they've had real struggles, and what they've learned about self-leadership, and then how they've grown that knowledge and what they bring. So it's been a really great opportunity for me to learn more about my area, but also I know that there's such a huge value, especially now, especially when we're asked to um, live our lives differently.
Oh, it's so different. It's such an adjustment. Again, I'm a bit of a homebody as well, but it's been such an adjustment all the way around the whole entire world. How we shop, how we eat, how we interact with people. It's just been
Mhm.
such a huge change. And I think throughout the whole thing, one of the positive things that I've noticed is we're really getting to know ourselves and what our limits are and how to reach above those limits, because we've been forced to learn new things. We've been forced to figure out new ways to keep these businesses up and running. So I commend you for that. That's incredible. Now, are you used to reaching out to people by cold calling like you did to reach out to these people, or is that something new for you?
Um, it's an ongoing,
It is, eh?
thing,
It,
right?
it's something you do all the time. So have you seen our program that we offer through Awesomepreneurs called Connected? That's directly linked to LinkedIn.
I don't think so.
Oh boy, I've got to make sure I talk to you about that program. What it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it's a targeted lead program. We work with a business out of Indianapolis called Connected. We've got a partnership going now.
nice.
I used it for 2 weeks to reach out to people about Awesomepreneurs. I had 496 new connections in a 2-week period. And when
Wow,
when I saw that happen, I knew I had to bring it to our members for Awesomepreneurs, and it's changed so many lives. So I'll make sure that you get that link as soon as we're off the podcast here. I'll send that information to you right away. But
beautiful.
is there new things that you're learning about yourself in general, as not only a person, but as a business owner and a leader in the community? Is there new things you're learning through all this?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it circles back to things that are always kind of there, but you just take it to a deeper level. So um, I think the thing that we don't talk about very often is fear,
Oh,
right?
you're so right.
And so um, like I said, the interviews for me are the easy part. As an introvert, I really like having deeper conversations. So these are really fun for me. But it's figuring out, this is such a huge project, and there's so many wheels that have to turn, all these gears. So I've got a team. I've hired people that are, I laugh, I'm like, yes, I'm feeding the economy, because I've hired people to help me, because there's 100%, I could never have done this on my own, not at
So,
all.
what kind of people did you have to hire around you to get you the help that you needed?
So I already had my website developer for my own website. So I just brought her on board, and that's Patty Muldoon from Take Care of My Site. So she's was a Londoner, but is now living on the Bruce Peninsula. No envy there.
Yeah.
Um, and but I hired a virtual assistant, ultimately out of Halifax. I know there are some locally, but it's like anything, right? You look at what someone has and what they have to offer, and she's brilliant. She's really up leveled my game, and I've had for a while. I don't know if you've got this, but sort of the dream people you'd like to add to your team as your business goes forward. And a virtual assistant had been on my list for a few years, but I just didn't have enough work or money or whatever to be able to do that. But 100%, this woman is amazing. And so when you see any of the advertising out on LinkedIn or on Facebook, she's 100% responsible for that. She's so brilliant.
So you found that a virtual assistant has been extremely helpful for you
Oh,
moving forward.
yes, taken off the load, right? Like sharing that load with someone where I can say, like she's done all the social media packages for every one of our guests so that there's a consistent look. And I don't have those skills.
Yeah,
And
it's not easy.
that's part of being a business owner, is looking at where your, as some of my interviewees talk about, your zone of genius, that putting those together and having them look professional and consistent, and people are proud to use them, like, awesome.
Yeah, you can't really put a price on something like that, can you?
No,
It makes a big difference
huge
moving
difference.
forward for how people see you and how they perceive you as a business owner. And from
Yeah,
what I've seen, the stuff that's out there has been incredible. I'm
yeah,
impressed. That's why I agreed to come on as a sponsor for this event. I'm looking forward to that. Now, what day
yeah.
is the event and how long does it go for?
So it runs 3 days. It's May 4th to May 6th. So each day there will be 8 interviews that will air. I'm just doing the last of the interviews today, so they're pre-recorded, so that we can get, everything done on the back end, and then they're released each day. Um, yeah. So, and there's really great, so everybody has an opportunity to watch the interviews for free. You can register, and then you'll get the emails as to when those interviews go. But if you buy a pass, it means then that you not only have access to those interviews the day of, but you get all of them for as long as you want, plus audios that you can download, plus each guest is providing like some kind of resource or gift. But you only get those if you're a paid holder, right?
Of
So
course. Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, and really just, whether they're 30-minute free consults, which, normally would run 250 or $300 depending, or video training series, or PDFs that they put together, or, any, or ebooks, just really great value with awesome insights and resource.
Now, how much is a 3-day pass for that event if somebody
So
wants to purchase one?
yeah, so it comes in, it's the first time offer, it's sort of like buy it now and get the best price, is $47. And then the next price for the is 97 through the summit. And if you wait, if you come late to the party, then it's 147. And I do want to say that I there was a choice to be made about what currency I charged in. And
Yeah, because when you're dealing with the entire world, it's hard to make that choice, right?
well, it was suggested to me that I price in USD, but ultimately I went with Canadian. So, and there's a few reasons for that, and maybe some people would say that I'm foolish for it. But as Canadians, and the exchange rate is brutal.
Yeah, it's over 30% now, is it not?
It's high, and
Yeah.
so for sure some of my expenses are in USD, and so I'm just kind of swallowing that, because I just feel like for my fellow Canadians, we could use a break. And you know what?
Yeah.
If you're anywhere else in the world and you're used to paying USD, you're going to go, the Canadian dollar, what a deal.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I think that's a brilliant decision that you made. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of thankful people for that because the dollar's just crazy right now. I deal with some companies in the States and I know what the exchange rate is, and it's a hit to the
It's
pocketbook.
painful. It's
I'll order stuff on Amazon and stuff, and I'll forget to check if it's in US or
oh,
Canadian, and I'll get my bill and it says, $54 I thought I was paying, and it goes up to 82 in 2 seconds because of the exchange rate. It's just been nuts.
It's
So,
painful, but I'm Canadian. I'm proud to be a Canadian, and maybe someday, there's an argument for USD, but and the fact of the matter is the language of commerce is English. So it doesn't matter where you go in the world. English, if you're in business, that's the language that's used. And I suppose the argument would be that the USD is the currency that's used, but c'est la vie.
now, how would people get a hold of you, and where would they find the details about the summit?
Excellent question. So the website is Global Self Leadership Summit.
Here, I'm actually let's take our time. I'm gonna put it along. There's a ticker at the bottom where people can follow.
Yeah.
So if I go www.
Global.
GLOBAL.
Self.
Leadership
Summit.com.
Cool. So I'm going to make sure that people can see that across the ticker at the bottom. Now, how would they get a hold of you if they wanted to reach out to you personally? What's the best email?
Well, they can use my, they can either use Frances at globalselfleadershipsummit.com, which is.
Okay, so Frances.
Yeah, FRANCES.
At Global Leadership.
Global Self Leadership.
Yeah, self. There we go. We're going to get everybody on board. So we, Summit. At what?
So it's Frances at globalselfleadershipsummit.com.
Beautiful. Okay, we're all set now. So I'm going to renew this. People can check it out on the ticker at the bottom. They'll be able to reach out to you directly. Now, I know there's sponsorship opportunities for this as well. I jumped on board because I love what you're doing. Can they find those sponsorship opportunities at the website as well?
Yes, they should be there. If they, I'm so buried in so many things. It's like, I don't know. Can they? They should be able to.
I caught you off guard. It's okay. It happens. It's Friday.
Oh, is it? I don't know anymore.
I never know what day of the week it is anymore as well. It's been crazy. But yeah, I just want to make sure that people can reach out to you yourself.
Yes.
And find out about the opportunities, because this is the way things are going right now. I don't think people understand. There's a lot of people giving away free stuff online right now, which I love. I love seeing it. It's amazing to try and help each other. But the scary thing is, if this is the new way things are going to run, people need to understand that they're going to have to start charging for these online events and all this kind of stuff just to survive, because they can't survive giving away free stuff for a long period of time. We don't know how long this is going to drag out. So we've had to figure out new and exciting ways to generate income for business. I think you've done a great job of doing that. Again, $47 for a 3-day summit. That's an absolute steal. You would never find that in the real world if we were still in the norm. So it's a great deal. Now, so they can buy a ticket for that, or you said they can get a free pass as well, but they just won't have access to the material after, right?
That's exactly right. And so, so they get it each day. There'll be 8 interviews, and that's a lot to take in because some of the interviews run almost an hour. Most are 30, but some are, if there was a lot, if I like to say, if the interviews got quite rich with content, then that's what they are. So you're not going to do 8 hours because it's not Netflix.
No, I hear you. That would be a long time. But if they pay, they'll have access to that, and they could listen to it in their car. They could go for a walk and they could listen to it on the replay. Is that true?
That's right. They could download the audios, but you only get that if you pay. If it's free, then you're one and done, right? You watch them, and then at the end of the day, they go away. If you pay, then you have access forever, really.
Which makes
And you can
100%
download
sense. I
yeah.
love that. Now, we've talked about the summit. Now, why don't we talk a
Mhm.
little bit about you, Frances, and what you do and what your business is called, and how you help people on a daily basis? Why don't we get into a little bit of that? So what is it you exactly do?
Well, in addition to being an author and a speaker, the thing that I'm really moving more towards now is the mentorship coaching that I do. And so, and that's a bit of a work in progress in terms of pulling that together and exactly who I want to serve. It is in the realm of self-leadership. So it is really, I'm reaching out to spiritual seekers who are stuck in transition and are looking to make change in their lives. So I help them find clarity on that, and so we get into mindset and deal with inner critic stuff and all of that good stuff. So
All the
the
deep
men-
stuff that everybody finds hard to dig into, right? You kind of
well,
pull it out of them.
if you're stuck, there gets to a point when you're tired of being stuck.
I
And
agree.
then you want to figure that out. And my personal and professional experience, I pull that all together. And of course, there's everything I'm learning from all these other experts. You can't help but learn from each other, right? And I'm fond of saying that leaders are learners, and so that's an ongoing thing. So
Every day
yeah,
I get to learn. I think that's one of the biggest assets and the most amazing thing that's come out of building awesomepreneurs actually is the people that I get to connect with on a daily basis, the coaches that we have, the amount of
yeah.
learning that I've done in the last 2 years far beats any learning that I did before I started Awesomepreneurs because of the people we connect with. Now, we have
Mhm.
11 business coaches on the team for Awesomepreneurs, and I don't think any of them hit quite what you do. So we should talk about that too once we're done this interview and see if you'd like to possibly be part of the Awesomepreneurs team. Because any coaches we can bring on is a bonus for our members. We
Yeah,
love adding value. We love adding new coaches. Now, you've been to Awesomepreneurs events in the past,
I have. Yeah.
and you came back. So did you enjoy the events? And if so, can you tell people a little bit about your experience there and if you got to meet anybody?
Oh yeah, and yeah, for sure. And what's kind of fun is you might make a surface connection with someone on LinkedIn, say, but what the events actually do is you get to meet them, right? You get to
Yeah.
have the conversation that you don't really have through a LinkedIn email or a LinkedIn little message. It's not at the same depth. So as an introvert, what I've learned to do is give myself permission to, if I talk to 5 people, so there might be a room of 100 or 200,
Yeah.
but my thing is, if I talk to 5 people and have a really good conversation, then that's a win for me. And so Awesomepreneurs, it's a pretty big event. You've got pretty good attendance there, but typically I get to speak to 3 or 4 people, have a great conversation, and go, "Oh, you're Jill Ellis. I've met you on LinkedIn. I see what you do," but then you can make that connection. So that's been it deepens the business relationship and business connection. So you feel more comfortable about referring business to people because you've met them, right? You've had the conversation. So I have found that very, very useful. I'm pretty particular about the networking events I go to. I know probably my extrovert friends go to way more networking events than I do. So it is about being choosing carefully, and Awesomepreneurs has filled some of that for me.
That means a lot to me, especially coming from a professional like yourself. And I wanted it to be different than all those other networking groups. I find, and again, I make it very clear, we don't compete with anybody. There's
Mhm.
enough to go around for everybody. There's lots of
Yeah.
groups in London, But when you're seeing the same 12 to 15 people for breakfast or lunch week in and week out, it makes it hard to build and grow. So when I designed Awesomepreneurs, I wanted to design it as a larger scale event where not, when you go in there in a month, usually it's 50% members and 50% new people. And that keeps happening month after month. So every meeting that you go to, you're going to get to meet new people that you've never seen before. That's what's been special for me. And I love that. And we want to continue that going forward. Now, with that being said, so you've made a couple relationships at Awesomepreneurs that have meant something to you, like you just mentioned. Now, and you don't usually go to other networking events, do you?
I don't go to too many, no.
Yeah.
I'm choosy, and I'm just speaking for the other introverts out there, right? Like it can be exhausting. And so, and it's funny, like the way that the networking groups tend to go, it sort of seems like they're all in the same week. Like it's like, we'll all meet the last week of the month. And it's like, oh my gosh, no, I can't do them all. So, no, I pick and choose.
So did you find yourself more comfortable in that atmosphere and in that room than you would more so, you say, at a networking group where there's 12 to 15 people? Was the comfort level there for you in the room?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of built my own strategies, right? So
that's what I want to hear about. We want to hear about those strategies that you've built, because there's other introverts out there that are terrified to go to any events, especially the size of Awesomepreneurs, because we are a larger scale event. What strategy have you built around going into a room of that size?
So I do, what I do is I look for someone who's standing by themselves or looks uncomfortable.
This is important, folks. I want everybody to make sure they listen to this.
Yeah. So I look for someone who's standing by themselves or looks uncomfortable, because I know that we are probably sharing some of those same feelings, and it gives me the permission to go over that and introduce myself and ask them, like, is this your first time? Or, do you know anybody here? Or, I'm really honest. Like I'll say, I can find this a bit uncomfortable, or, or how did you hear about this? Or, and then, or if I see someone, because there's usually a guest speaker, right? And so when I look around and look, and it doesn't mean that I don't know other people there, but if they're all busy doing their extrovert, meeting everybody in the room, and I'm ready not to do that, then again, I'll look for someone that's sitting by themselves and ask them if I can sit with them.
That's incredible. I love hearing stuff like that, because again, like I said, there's a lot of people out there that are like yourself, and they're terrified to go to these events because they don't feel comfortable. They're not comfortable in a crowd. They don't know how to start a conversation or build a relationship. So the fact that you've gone out of your comfort zone and you have a strategy for that, that's pretty incredible. And I wanted people to hear about that. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, well, for sure. And it's not even that I'm terrified. Like that's probably too strong of a word.
Yeah.
It really is more just, how do I make this work for me? I am not, I would joke, I would tell you, I have a good friend who is a true blue extrovert. And if we walked into a room together, by the end of the night, she would have talked to everyone in the room. Everyone would know her. And there was a time when I would have felt like a failure, right? Like a social failure, because she'd met everyone and people were going, hey, great, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm a wallflower, I'm over on the side. But now it means that, okay, so I've spoken to 3 or 4 people, but I feel like I know those people. Like I know who they are, I know what their business is, I know what they bring to the table. And so my journey is a long, slow build.
That's amazing. I love hearing that kind of stuff. And it kind of brings me back to a story that I want to talk about, because you say you're a professional speaker as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here's my point about the events that we do and how important it is to be getting on stages when you get the opportunity to do that. So if you're at an event of 100 people and you walk in with a friend, and you and your friend have a competition, and you say, okay, you collect business cards at the start of during the night. I'm going to collect business cards during the night, but you get to speak on stage and your friend doesn't. So
Oh,
stick with me here for a second.
okay.
So this is how important it is for people to be getting on stages in the professional speaking careers that people are starting now when they're running a business. Because if you're on stage and you guys have a contest to see who collects the most cards and who knows who at the end of the night, if you've done a 15-minute presentation, your friend that was with you got 100 business cards, you got 100 business cards, and your friend calls somebody the next morning and says, hey, my name's Susan, I met you at the event last night. They might necessarily not remember them, but for sure, if you got the 15 minutes on stage, you reach out to people the next morning and you say, hey, my name's Francis, I was the person that was on stage, last night at that event. Tell me how many people are going to know you as opposed to your friend, right?
Well, that's true.
That's what I love about the speaking thing and having a stage to be present on. Now, how long have you been speaking on stages for? Have you been doing that for a long period of time?
Well, professionally, maybe 3 years, like in this way. But like I was a coordinator of volunteers for a lot of years, and so like speaking is just, I feel like one of those skills that if you're in any kind of a business situation, you need to get comfortable with it. Now, it's something that I love, so it's not something that I struggle with. And I know people go, introvert speaker, like they don't.
I was just going to say that.
I know. So again, I think there's a misperception of what introverts are. So I think that people automatically think, so that word terrified that you use, that's not a good representation of really what it means to be an introvert. So it's not that I'm scared. It's not that I'm, any of those things. But it's about the energy exchange. So extroverts get their energy by being around a lot of people, which is why they're, and again, this is generalization, but it's why they're finding this stay at home stuff really hard, because they're used to getting their energy by seeing a lot of different people and connecting with them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, they feed them. Yeah,
absolutely do. Right. It builds them up. It feeds their energy. But for an introvert, that depletes our energy. And so it's why we seek smaller groups as a rule, why we want those deeper conversations. And that kind of fills us up. So one of the, as an offside on this, one of the things that I like is that now when people go out, so we're doing our walking on the sidewalk and someone has to do the weird like off the sidewalk.
Yeah, the little shuffle. Yeah.
But
we'll call it the COVID shuffle. How's
there
that?
You go. But people are making eye contact and they're talking to each other, right? Like that didn't used to happen. If you were out for a walk, people were into their cell phone or they were whatever they were doing, but now people are actually seeing each other and are actually talking to each other. And I know that that's a bit of an aside from what we're talking about, but for me, that's what I really like. And so when I go to a networking event, I don't want to be one of your 100-person business card thing. Like that doesn't feel authentic to me.
Yeah.
That's just me. I'd rather have 4 business cards at the end of the night and know that I've made that kind of connection, because that's what's important to me.
That's brilliant.
But again, as a speaker, what it means is that in that time frame that I'm on the stage and I'm talking, I'm delivering a message that I think the people really are looking to hear, right? That's why they've hired me. They want that expertise. They want to know, like on my particular speaking, I talk about the arc of success, which is attitude, resilience, and courage. And so I can bring those elements forward, and I really enjoy that. But I'm probably not going to stick around for another 8 hours. Would be exhausting for me to stay. So I try and still stay and interact, but I will be absolutely whipped at the end of that day. But an extrovert would be like, yeah, and bring me some more.
Yeah. I'm pumped. No, it's kind of cool to hear about that stuff. And again, to be an introvert and be a speaker, that's not easy because again, there's so many people that don't understand the speaking world and how hard
Mhm.
it is to get on stage in front of people. I mean, I didn't speak at Awesomepreneurs for the first 4 months that I ran it. I handed the microphone
Mhm.
off. I would run. I would hide it. I was terrified to be, and that's a true word that I can use. I was terrified to be on stage in front of that many people. And finally, one of the coaches reached out and said, listen, you know, you're the face of Awesomepreneurs. You have to be on that stage. You have to get comfortable up there in front of people. So I had to work at it. It's not easy. So
Well, it
sorry,
is the thing that most people fear, right? Is public speaking.
it's
And
so true.
again, for me though, that's not something I fear. Like I've been on stages since I was a kid doing poetry recitals and so it's the stage is not that place for me if I'm doing something that I like to do. Like don't ask me to do a solo song. I would do it with someone else. I
Yeah.
don't want to like
It's something you got to be comfortable with, and all the topics that you speak about, you know about, and
yeah,
you know if somebody threw a question at you, you'd be able to answer that standing on
right.
your head. So
That's
that's
right.
the important thing too. Is people need to understand: don't go on stage if you don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
I see
isn't
so much of it.
isn't it painful? Like it's
It
painful to
is.
be in the audience and depending upon how self-aware, and that's what we talk, one of the subjects in the summit is it's no it's yes, it's knowing yourself. And while it's easy to say, well, it doesn't matter what other people think, actually it kind of does, because
Yeah.
in the work environment, what you think you might be coming across as might be different than what other people are receiving.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's uncomfortable when you see it in the rooms and you see it happen. Um, but if you're prepared and you know what you're doing and you know what you're speaking about, it can make a huge difference in your
Oh
business
yeah.
going forward and you as a
Yeah.
person as far as making connections.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
with that being said, too, Francis, I want to talk about the summit one more time before I let you get back to your day. So let's go over the date again, when it
Yeah.
starts, and the price and how that breaks down.
Okay. So it goes live May 4th. So that's just over a week away. Somewhat terrifying from my perspective, just because I got so much work to do.
I hear
So
you.
May 4th, 5th, and 6th is when it runs. If they go to the website that you've got collected from me,
Yeah.
then they can register for their free pass. Um, and then, but if they want access beyond that, then the best price is $47 Canadian, and then it goes up from there, 97, and if they've totally waited until like later, then it's 147.
Awesome. So I want to thank you so much for spending time with us today, Francis. It means a lot. I'm glad to be on board as a sponsor for
Glad to
Awesomepreneurs.
have you.
I appreciate it with all my heart. And I know it's going to be an exciting, fun event for everybody to be part of. It's a huge opportunity to learn. I mean, from
Yeah.
leaders from across the whole entire world. You know, you've heard all the places that she reached out to, folks, to find these people from across the entire world. So I thank you, Francis, for spending time with us today. If you stick with me here for a sec, I'm going to end the podcast and you and I can continue to chat for a couple minutes. So just bear with me. Thanks again.
Thank you.